Welcome to Victoria Rumble Room, an island show that attempts to reach across Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada, and the wide, wide world. And across that huge expanse, a man known worldwide as the Croatian sensation, the flower of Tulip Street, John Jurisic. And John, right off the top, your home base in Saanich. Well, it's a municipality that is apparently not going to the dogs.
Robin, to the now over million plus viewers, who let the dogs out? Oh, who? That's right, Robin. We got some doggy problems over here. So many catchy phrases for really what's become a very contentious local issue. Bottom line is Saanich Council meets on the 26th of June to discuss new proposal from a 2-year consultation. This policy proposal bans dogs from going off-leash in 84% of Saanich parks. Also, the staff proposal calls for dogs to go on leash on all Saanich beaches, with the exception of Cordova Bay, which up until now required leashes. People are getting pretty heated on both sides of this issue. Woof, 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 woof.
I think our friend Scott summarizes this whole issue very nicely in this short note he sent us, which said simply, "There will be war." And dog owners oppose the change of leashing regulations. At least some do, and they're getting very vocal. They are collecting signatures and will deliver a petition to council on the 26th. If you're interested in adding your name, you can go to the Facebook site Happy Dogs in Saanich Parks. Things are particularly edgy at Mount Douglas Park, where over 90% of that massive green space will require dogs on leash. If this new policy goes through, only a 1.5 kilometer loop will be available to people who want to walk their dog without a leash. And to some, that just doesn't seem to be enough. We caught up with Trish Fougner, who wants Saanich to take a hard second look at this canine controversy.
It's interesting. I mean, we actually agree with some of the proposals they're putting forward, like the dog, well, not just dog, but the environmental cleanup, that kind of stuff. We agree with the licensing of dog professionals. All these things are pretty good, but it's this part where it is outlandish to expect dog owners to be in such a small area and banned on all the beaches.
Well, happy
dogs in Saanich Park.
Okay.
Because we got a petition going. There will be a protest coming up.
The word is getting out. That's social media, one of the advantages. Strong reaction. People get pretty upset when you start threatening to take things away from them that they care a lot about.
Well, this is park etiquette, which we really believe in. I mean, it's protecting nature, it's being a responsible dog owner, and leashing when you need to leash. Doesn't mean to be leashed all the time. And actually what it really means is have your dog under control and be able to call it back within one call is really what you should be doing. You know, we're quite outraged because right now we're losing 93% of off-leash areas in the park at this point.
How you doing?
Good, how are you? Do you know about the...
I just signed the petition.
Yes, thank you. That's our petition. Why are we creating a brand new strategy that's $4 to $7 million with more bylaws and more bylaw officers penalizing people who are good? And this is what it's going to do. It's not going to catch those people who are bad owners, whose dogs are running off leash that are not in control. That bylaw is going to do nothing for that. It's just going to punish the people who already are doing well, and it's going to punish the Saanich taxpayers who come to this, park pretty much every day. A lot of seniors, people with disabilities have pets, and this is their place to go, and they live in the area. And they're Saanich residents. They pay their taxes just like everyone else does. And what's angering a lot of people is they're feeling like we're Saanich taxpayers here, and no one's listening to us. And this strategy's been going on for 2 years. And like you said, it just feels like there's this undercurrent happening of a biased sort of outcome that whatever we put in doesn't seem to stick. And
You're gathering signatures right now.
yeah, we are.
You're going to be meeting with council. I gather a bunch of you are going down to city chambers to let council know what you think about this.
Yeah.
So this is the beginning, in a way, of a dialogue.
Yeah, it's like 2 years to this point where we get this strategy presented to us on Monday that is nowhere near what we've been talking about for 2 years. These are people who know how to control dogs, how to allow them to be off leash. You know, and yeah, maybe some of them won't be off leash, right? Right? Like him, like some of the dogs, you go, okay, this one can be off leash, this one can't be. Like you know, because you're professionals.
I'm a trainer.
And you guys learn the behavior of the dogs. You've taught the behavior in the dogs. And it's really important to make sure that everybody on the trail is protected, right?
Yeah, and we would be out of business if we had ill-behaved dogs.
Yeah, exactly.
You're doing a great job, by
Oh,
the way.
thank you.
We need a Facebook page to get everybody to...
We have a Facebook page. It's called Happy Dogs in Saanich Parks. And we've been advocating for 2 years now.
Okay.
So if you want... I mean, let's face it, this park is an urban park. We're not in the middle of nowhere. It's super populated all around here. And think about how many people must have moved to these areas. So they thought, oh, I've got a place to take my dog off leash for a long walk, or a place to, you know, go for a run with my dog, or at any particular distance, or at a distance that's actually reasonable, not 1.5 kilometer loop. So it's just, to me, we're discouraging physical activity from some of these people who need to have that for their dog.
And social activity.
And social activity, and that's the mental health aspect. We know during COVID, there were so many people who got dogs, and so many people actually gravitated to the parks because nature was something they all sort of connected with. And we all want to be a part of conserving and making sure we protect the environment. That's definitely something we've always thought of, but we need that place to have off leash as well. And it can't be a short little spot, and it can't be a little box on a field somewhere either, because you'll talk to dog professionals, they'll tell you that is a dangerous, you know, situation for dogs to be a part of. It is a pressure cooker situation that's going to be ready to explode. And it's not something they would recommend. And so we need this environment that we have here now.
Well, the happy dogs in Saanich Parks don't seem very happy right now, but it seems to be there has to be a way for us to reach a compromise. Is this what gets Saanich heated up? Dog controversy? Certainly there are people on either side of this issue who want to see parks set aside for walkers and children without these dogs running loose. They also have a voice.
They certainly do, John, and I think Viz Graham has written a rather compelling article taking the other side of this argument, outlining why dog leashes should be here, and here are several of points, including there will still be 58 unenclosed parks where off-leash dogs are permitted, plus 12 enclosed dog parks. Viz goes on to say, I would like to find a place that small children can go and play where there won't be dogs. We have to drive to the peninsula or Esquimalt to find such a playground or a beach that's not in Saanich. Also mentioned, some people leave their dog waste out. They don't clean up after themselves, and sometimes it's in areas where children play. So that's a big concern. And Viz goes on to say, putting your dog on a leash is not only responsible pet ownership, but it's the law in most protected areas in Canada and the United States.
Robin, it's clear there are two sides to this argument, and you and I have chatted about a lot of things over the last couple of years. Hard to believe that this is one of the most contentious, nonetheless. Surveys show that over 70% of the people who regularly walk in parks are walking with their dogs. So this is a big portion of the voting public. No doubt Saanich will need to take a long, hard, barky look at this recommendation before making it the law.
And at least this isn't a headache as we shift across to another issue. It's at least not a headache for our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. He's off the hook as far as dogs are concerned because, let's face it, he's embattled on some other major fronts. He's refusing to hold a public inquiry into Beijing and inferred political interference in our electoral system. There have been accusations raised. He's dragged in the former Governor General, David Johnson, to make a judgment on whether there should be a full public inquiry, and Johnson ruled it isn't needed. The problem is, as it turns out, Johnson is a friend of the Trudeau family and has also been a contributor to the Trudeau Foundation. Parliament voted to remove Johnson from this position. He said he doesn't answer to Parliament. He answers to the Prime Minister. And then he went out and hired himself a crisis communications firm at taxpayer expense. So my question is, what is Mr. Trudeau afraid of?
Well, apparently his Parliament, who voted unanimously in opposition, to have an inquiry.
Well, not unanimously, because the Liberals didn't vote.
Correct. His opposition.
They supported the Prime Minister.
Yeah. So
unanimous means the whole place is basically up.
That would have been a problem.
That would have been a real problem.
This NDP and Conservatives and Bloc Québécois all are wanting a inquiry. I think that, to me, if I was PM, would be enough. That's a lot of representation. So here you and I, we're battling over what to dig into this issue more deeply and to get an expert to help us understand what's going on. We're very fortunate to have a Chinese issues expertise living on the island. Jonathan Manthorpe is an author and columnist who knows a lot about foreign interference. Let's zoom him in.
And now joining us in the Rumble Room, back again, and great to have him, is Jonathan Manthorpe, author, political commentator, and former journalist. So a man with many hats, and great to have you back on the program.
Great to see you both. It's good to be back with you. I enjoyed very much our last encounter, and I'm sure I will enjoy this one too.
Well, we certainly have some good topics to dig into. Former Governor General David Johnson has recommended against holding full public hearings on foreign interference into our electoral system. So first, right off the top, were you surprised at this ruling?
No. I worked briefly for the Prime Minister's office, so I know a bit about the way these things are done. And you never arrange one of these things without having first a very clear idea of what you expect the outcome to be. So I wasn't surprised. Initially and before, I was not in favor of a public inquiry. I didn't see the point of it. We know what we need to know. We know what's going on. It's been documented for years what the Chinese Communist Party is up to in this country. What we need to do is stop it, and we know how to stop it. We've got all sorts of tools that are at hand that we can do it with. So a public inquiry, I didn't think would actually serve any purpose except delay. And one of the chief purposes for a government's point of view of whatever stripe is delay. That's what public inquiries are for. But I have to say that having read the report and listened to all the commentary on Mr. Johnson's response, I think it's hard now to avoid a public inquiry. I think that the pond has been so poisoned now by politics and by partisanship and some really very unpleasant allegations backwards and forwards, that probably we need a public inquiry as the only way to really clear the air now, which is a shame.
Jonathan, let's sort of go sort of a broader look and then sort of zero in on more what might happen. So first of all, so great to have a man with your expert knowledge on our show, expert knowledge with regard to what has now become foreign intrigue over in Asia. Let's chat about how you think the Chinese government in Beijing is taking this news. Beijing has been accused of meddling in elections and donating money to candidates that it believes favor their policies and objectives. When it comes to this Johnson declaration, do the Chinese really care either way?
No, because it's happened to them before. It's happened in Australia. It's happened in Taiwan. It's happened in the United States. And of course, it's what they do. So, it's what they've been up to. They don't really care. All right, they've been caught with their fingers in a cookie jar. They'll rummage through the back of the larder and find something else tasty to nibble on. No, I don't think they care for one moment. They probably they're only surprised it took us this long.
It's interesting that we have, on the one hand, the issue of an international conspiracy or foreign interference, and we also have Canadian politics at play in a big way on this. I mean, David Johnston was actually appointed as Governor General by Stephen Harper, and even though he has some relationships, I guess, with the Trudeaus, because he was a head of McGill University, and I guess their kids used to ski together. I think he had always had a fairly unblemished record up until now, but suddenly things have become partisan. The lawyer that he's working with apparently made a sizable donation to the federal Liberal Party. So, do you think that the public really in the bigger picture is going to care about any of this? Is this going to be something that's going to haunt Trudeau? Is it something he's going to have to deal with? Or is this so inside the beltway that this won't be a big issue in a year's time when we face another general election?
No, I mean, it's a really good question, Robin, and an important question. And I've thought about it a good deal, because what is very apparent in polls for the last few years, for about 4 or 5 years, is that the Canadian public is far more skeptical about the relationship with the Chinese Communist Party and the People's Republic of China than are the political masters up in Ottawa. And I think it does hurt Trudeau. Yes, I think it does. And let me just say about Mr. Johnston. I've met him a few times, and he's a fine man and has an excellent reputation. But I think it was a big mistake for the Prime Minister to appoint a former Governor General. The whole point, we're talking here about confidence in the Canadian political system, and one of the central facets of the Canadian political system is that the Governor General is not political, not partisan. So to appoint or even ask him to perform a duty, which is essentially making a judgment on the government, and you could be pretty sure he was going to come down easy on the government because that's who appointed him. I think it was a mistake to ask him, and it was a mistake for him to agree. I think he's harmed his own little spot in history by accepting to do this. And of course, it's not just China. I mean, China is at the top of the pile, but we should have a registry of foreign political operatives here. They've got to be foreign political influencers over here. They should be required to register. If they don't register, they should be shoved out. Australia does it, Taiwan does it, the Americans do it. We should have a registry of foreign political influencers working here, and it should have teeth, and we should use those teeth.
So why don't we?
I think that we don't, because of the influence of some of the agents of influence that China has planted here, particularly in business. We mentioned already, donations to the political parties. There was a lot of influence going around by Canadian businesses during the Huawei affair, trying to get that closed down and threatening not to donate to the political parties if they didn't do something about it. The major influence that Beijing has in Canada is the Canada-China Business Council. But what really annoys me is that the whole picture of the importance of business with China on Canada has been grossly inflated. And misrepresented.
On the other side of this story, we have the New Democratic Party, which holds the balance of power in Canada right now. Jagmeet Singh has agreed not to hold a motion of non-confidence as long as the NDP gets some of the pet legislation that they really want to get through. And Singh says, though, that Johnson must go. He and his party voted in favor of Johnson leaving, but he clearly isn't going to call a motion of non-confidence. The NDP does not want an election right now. They don't want to risk, for example, seeing conservative Pierre Poilievre come to power. So this mess looks like it's going to drag on, and we're dragging along with it, I guess. But that's not true of this show, John, because now it's time to wrap up this show for another week.
Robin, lately, as someone who clearly our viewers have told me disparagingly, I have voted for Trudeau, and it seems like there's no end of problems with this man, and it has to end. These issues have got to come to some kind of conclusion. But not today. Absolutely, Robin. We've had a busy show with lots of great issues and interviews throughout the summer. And it's great weather, which seems to be continuing. So we expect many folks on their balconies or patios watching our show. And we really appreciate all of them and ask you to continue to follow our program. Here's some of the ways that you can regularly catch the Rumble Room. Of course, the heart and soul of this is our Facebook page. And the sort of companion heart and soul is the Twitter site. And our inventory page is our YouTube page, all of which are listed above. We also play around quite sometimes actively in other Facebook news groups, as well as Twitter, as well as Instagram. Anyway, I am Johnny Juricic, your Croatian sensation and doggy owner in Saanich.
Absolutely. And I too am the owner of a proud, furry little friend who actually goes off leash sometimes. Doesn't really watch our show, although he makes cameos. I'm Robin Adair, and rumble on.